We'll call the meeting of the City Council for March 12th to order. Our first order of business, I need to tell everyone that this meeting is recorded by video and audio in accordance with the state open meeting law. And first we start with a flag salute and a moment of silence. Councilor Nolan will lead us in the flag salute. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Councilor LeBlanc.
I would like to dedicate this evening's moment of silence to my brother Paul. He passed away in 2004. Today would have been his 46th birthday, so we're thinking about you today, Paul.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, please call the first order of business.
First order is oral communications.
Thank you. The public shall have the opportunity at every regularly scheduled meeting to be heard under oral communications on matters not appearing on the agenda. Oral communications shall allow any resident who has a request or complaint of any nature relative to city business to appear before the council, state their problems without debate, and the matter shall be referred to the proper agency through the office of the mayor. The resident will be notified within a 2-week period relative to the disposition of same, and a copy shall be forwarded to the city council. Persons speaking under oral communication shall be limited to 3 minutes each. The council president shall not allow complaints as to individual performance. So is there anyone for oral communications tonight? Name and address for the record, please.
Karen Spencer, 67 Langsford Street. Councilors, there are none so blind as those who will not see. To be fair, a lot is hidden from you, and a lot of what you're being told is not true. One item that should be all over the national press, but isn't, is the drinking water disaster in Sandy, Utah. Like in Flint, Michigan, people were allowed to drink water with wildly unsafe amounts of lead, copper, and other metals for over a week while the city officials tried to figure out how to handle the optics. A fluoridation overfeed had increased the fluoride concentrations to over 150 parts per million. This fluoride concentration dissolved metals out of pipes and fixtures, putting lead, copper, aluminum, and other toxins into the water at 20 to 40 times above the EPA do not drink limits. When the utilities director, whose water workers took 2 days to identify the overfeed, despite resident calls about burning water and vomiting, finally sent the EPA-required fluoride notice about flushing the pipes a week later, it was missing required language that said, "Do not ingest," and warned of permanent damage to pipes, equipment, and fixtures because of the fluoride. Apparently, someone in public health told the utilities director to omit that verbiage. Those public health authorities reassured the residents that even pregnant women and babies hospitalized with symptoms of poisoning would not suffer any permanent ill effects. Councilors, there are lawsuits pending against the city of Sandy for burst pipes, ruined appliances, missed work, medical costs, and veterinarian bills from that week in February. Of course, there will be long-term health effects. Whether the people will be able to prove subsequent learning disabilities, thyroid disease, kidney failure, bone disease, neurodegenerative disease, and even eye disease is solely because of the poisoned water is unlikely. But modern science predicts that those will be the cost for some residents. We need to pay attention to these costs. I previously mentioned that Senator Tarr sponsored a bill to study fluoridation economics. The incalculable costs of the inevitable accidents are not typically included in fluoridation calculations. There have been 3 fluoridation accidents in Massachusetts since 2000. New Hampshire and Iowa, who have municipal autonomy like Massachusetts, are considering legislation to ban fluoridation outright. Connecticut is one of the few states with a state mandate, and one of two with legislation pending that shifts accountability and liability to cities. It's time to open your eyes. As a matter of fact, the latest significant piece of peer-reviewed published science demonstrates that the biological mechanisms by which fluoridation contributes to the development of glaucoma, cataracts, and macular degeneration is contributed to by fluoridation. Counselors, don't be blind to what is going on with fluoridation. Don't be blinded by the deceits. Don't be blinded by the poisoned water. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else for oral communication? Thank you, Madam Clerk. Next order of business.
Next order of business is a presentation in regard to the Essex North Shore Agricultural and Technical School.
So I will turn the mic over to Councilor Gilman, who is our Gloucester's representative on the school committee. She will introduce the speakers from the Essex Technical and Agricultural School. Councilor Gilman.
Thank you, Councilor. I'm delighted to have three of our guests here that head up the team at the NSET, the Essex North Shore Agricultural and Technical School. They are Heidi Riccio, who is the superintendent and director, Maria Numerowski, who is our business manager, and Mark Strout, who is our school committee chair. And I also wanted to recognize Melissa Texera-Prince, the former school committee member and member of the Gloucester School Committee still, who's here. But it's just been delightful to serve and be the appointed member of this school committee. And I'm looking forward to my colleagues having an opportunity to hear your presentation and ask you various questions. So without further ado, I guess we'll start with our superintendent. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Gilman. Welcome.
Welcome. Thank you, Councilor Gilman, and welcome, or thank you for inviting me this evening to discuss various topics, but more importantly is how can we partner with Gloucester Public Schools and the City of Gloucester. As you know, you are one of our sending communities, which is extremely important to us that we look at you as a partner in students' education. We currently have 95 students that are at Essex North Shore Agricultural and Technical School from Gloucester. I know that many of you may be interested in future numbers. We currently have 230 students who have applied for acceptance in various grade levels. So we have approximately 95 students of our incoming grade 9 class, and then the rest of them are sprinkled throughout the rest of the remaining classes. The upperclassmen grades, we do, when they apply, and we can discuss this further, but when they do apply, it is really based on open enrollment in those programs that we have space available in. So I know last week I had given you a copy of our budget narrative, which certainly you're more than welcome to ask any other questions. I will say that Essex North Shore Agricultural and Technical School is really committed to technical and career excellence and academic excellence. So ensuring that all of our students are not only college ready, but they are career ready. Because eventually our students will be entering the workforce regardless of what post-secondary options they choose to pursue. Back to the partnership, we did in the fall go to all of our sending communities, actually in this hall, this great hall, and met with some of the individuals to make sure that you knew that we were here. So we recognize that although 95 students come to Danvers or Hawthorne, Massachusetts each day, we want to make sure that our services are available to you. We have 18 career and technical programs because we are adding one for next year, and then we have 8 agricultural programs. So students from Gloucester are able to explore in 27 or 28 different programs prior to them selecting. So recognizing that some of the partnerships could be construction related, They could be agricultural related. We're fortunate enough to actually set up a meeting at one of your next department meetings, which have been very helpful in making sure that we're servicing you and what your needs are. This actually allows our students to gain real-world experiences in the field, and it takes them out of that classroom or that shop environment. Another partnership that we created, which we'd like to obviously personally thank Superintendent Safier, as well as Representative Ferrante, the Burns family, and State Senator Bruce Tarr, for allowing us to partner with the Construction and Craft Laborers Program, Local 22 in Malden. We have a small number of students as a pilot program this year to train upperclassmen students in the laborers program. You may or may not know this, but many Gloucester fishermen are actually laborers in non-peak times of their season, and they will actually work for Local 22. We believe that developing that workforce for students that may or may not have applied to Essex North Shore, they deserve high-quality vocational education as well, and an opportunity to really change the path of their future. At this time, I would just like to refer you to some of the handouts that I have provided this evening so that we can review them. The Hawk Happenings is a handout that we have, and this is just to really update you on some of the exciting topics that we are currently working on at our school that do involve Gloucester residents. So there's actually a picture of former chairperson, Melissa Texera Prince, and one of our Gloucester students. This Gloucester student is in our dental assisting program. So if you read through this, and I know you don't necessarily have to at this point, but what we look at in order to reduce the assessments that we actually, or that you're responsible for paying as part of the vocational assessment, is revenues or competitive grant funding. The competitive grant funding is extremely important to us, particularly in career and technical education, as we are empathetic to the higher cost compared to traditional education. If you look at Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education's 2017 per pupil expenditure, it costs just $248 more to send a child from Gloucester to our school than it did to educate them in Gloucester Public Schools, which is considerably lower than your traditional vocational education. Typically, vocational education can be anywhere from $5,000 to $7,000 more than what that traditional rate is, but we would like to credit our workforce development coordinator, as well as Marie, and our grant writer, Mary Ellen Rancourt, to make sure that we recognize the important fiscal needs that our communities have and still meeting the needs of our students. We do have students in our cooperative education program, and we're working diligently. There's approximately 121 students that are out in their junior and senior year working anywhere from $12 an hour to $20.25 an hour in varying different types of fields. Primarily, machine technology is usually your highest rate of pay for an entry-level position. We have a rich adult education program that we just heard somebody talking about earlier. We are starting to do more community development education as well as workforce training education. We work very closely with Mass Hire. We also received funding from the North Shore CAP program, where we are educating 20 future machinists at no cost to any of those individuals taking that. The average cost would have been $4,500 for a 300-hour course. And that is another way that we would want to partner with Gloucester residents. We have another program coming up starting in June. So we would want to reach out to Gloucester residents, typically unemployed or underemployed, that they could be part of this program at no cost to them. We have a rich number of partners that are willing to take on these graduates or these completers upon completion of this program, the certificate program. They get a national certification through NIMS. There's also a MACWIC, but MACWIC is not national, it's more state-based. Grants we have received to date, over nearly $1 million worth of grants just this year in competitive grant funding. That's not to include the federal entitlement or state entitlement grants that we have. So we actively pursue funding sources which also benefit our sending communities from a reduction of what your assessment would be. We have more grants actually kind of pending, so I don't want to jinx us, and we'll keep our fingers crossed and knock on wood or laminate that we will get some good news in the next couple of months. We have many community members of Gloucester that are part of our program advisory committee, which is extremely important. All career and technical education programs have program advisory committees, and those are really industry leaders that allow us to make sure that we're educating our students for industry standards. So standards that are not 1985. As you know, technology changes constantly. We also host a variety of different community events. We did invite Gloucester to the Vaping Middlesex Partnership for Youth. We had over 250 people speaking 2 weeks ago, and Mara Healy was the guest presenter, which was very successful. We also had a program on drugs, prescription medication, the mixing of prescription medication and alcohol, and the parents of that person came, and all Gloucester public schools were invited to that as well. We are hosting a Research for Better Teaching, credited for undergraduate credit and graduate credit course called The Skillful Teacher. We have invited Gloucester Public Schools students, teachers. We have actually held some seats for those teachers that may want professional development opportunities, and that course will be held in July. Sorry. Just want to make sure I have everything. Okay, so I think at this point we can probably open it up to questions that you may or may not have, or yes.
Thank you for being here tonight. What kind of turnover of students do you typically retain your students?
So the attrition rate? The attrition rate is difficult because kids move in out of the district. Because we're a regional school district, however, we're typically able to keep those students in the district, provided that they are not an out-of-district student that can only access agricultural programs. So, for example, this year we accepted 380 grade 9 students. We are at 376. So approximately 4 students. It's a very low rate. The typical reason why students will actually leave our school, as you can imagine, if they're traveling on a bus. So some of it's transitional because they are really taking a chance. They're leaving their home district, their friends, their baseball team, their softball team, any other student-based activities, and coming to a brand new school. In some communities that have very small school systems, we are a very large campus. We sit on 110 acres, and our buildings we have multiple buildings on campus, so it can be somewhat challenging for those students. But we do have a low attrition rate, which we're very fortunate for. And any of those seats we want to fill. As you know, Governor Baker has really committed to increasing access to career and technical education. We are one of the largest schools that does have a wait list, so we're kind of a product of our own success, but with that comes students that really should be able to gain strong technical education programs. So any available seats, the expectation is that we're filling them. Thank you.
Dr. Cox?
What is your overall increase from last year's budget?
So we have a 4.64, and last year was a 4.23, thank you. So not a significant amount.
But you're increasing your budget by 4.5%.
Yes.
This coming year. When our local school comes to us and asks for 4% and we're unable to provide that, how do we justify giving you the 4%, 4.5% versus a possible not even a 2%, if we're lucky.
Sure.
Trying to figure out how we can justify giving, like, not that, I don't think that we have much choice because it's an assessment, but, I mean, our representative does have a vote in the,
Absolutely. So an increase in enrollment is extremely important for us to recognize. So with an increase in enrollment is going to increase the cost factor of educating those students. So for example, if you look, actually you don't necessarily have the budget book, but over time in fiscal year 2015, we had 1,130 students. And this year we have 1,412. Next year, we're going to be increasing another 40 students. So if you look at that, 40 students, the average class size is, say, 25. That's 1.5, more than 1.5 per core subject matter area.
but some of your programs that you're offering and you're paying for have no enrollment.
That is for Gloucester students. So that sheet is only for Gloucester students. It is not for all students. And any student, any program that is under-enrolled, there is a loss of staff member.
I would appreciate getting a copy of that budget book. I'm Chair of Budget and Finance, and I've got to justify.
Absolutely. I have an extra one for you, so I'll give it to you before I leave.
Thank you. I just have to justify, as being chair,
Yep.
how that equals out.
Absolutely. And it, just for future reference as well, anything that we have here is also obviously public information, so it's on our website. It is posted on our website. So if anyone would like an electronic copy, that is currently posted at this time.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Councilor Nolan.
How you doing tonight, Heidi?
Hi.
First of all, I want to tell you how much I support the Voc schools. I was a student of Voc back when they were in Beverly.
Good job.
It was Bulldogs back then. My question is to you is we have a really nice shop set up in Gloucester as well. And we have some shops that are underutilized by students. And have you thought of worked with our school department of school choice and for people that may be waiting to get into an electrical shop or a machine shop at North Shore that we haven't opened in Gloucester? Is that something that you've thought about recommending to people that you can't get in here right now, but you could choice to Gloucester and utilize their shop program as well?
That's actually a good question. There is some legislation coming out that's kind of on the, will be on the floor at this time regarding access to vocational education. I will say that we have met extensively with Gloucester Public Schools, both the principal and the superintendent, of how we partner. I know that you recently had a coordinated program review last spring, and we're there to help. I actually worked in a city vocational school in the city of Medford, and I definitely understand that resources can be extremely tight, particularly when you're in a K through 12 district and parents want full-time kindergarten aides, and you have to kind of make that choice from a financial aspect. I will say that we have offered our services as well to update some of the program areas in your, particularly at Gloucester High School. And we are more than willing to send, I think it would be a very cool opportunity for our kids to be working alongside Gloucester High School students, whether they're machine kids, electrical kids, carpentry kids. So really the first step is that construction and craft laborers program, where the kids are coming to us Monday through Thursday from 12 to 4, but on Fridays they actually stay in Gloucester. The Laborers Union, through a partnership, did some updating and some upgrades of an existing, I think the old culinary program, into a classroom area. So I think, yes, I think that could be the future in the conversations of how do we increase access and look at that available from the number of students that we can actually take on.
Excellent, thank you. Great job.
Thank you.
Other councilors? Councilor Hecht.
Thank you for coming. I just, and you may not know this off the top of your head, but I'm interested in, you know, there's a big demand for your school. and whether it's the Gloucester kids, but what percent of kids get turned away? I'd like to know from Gloucester, but that may be an unfair question. But do you have an overall, so many apply every year and so many get in every year? Like, what do those numbers look like?
I can give you raw numbers. Don't put me on the smat.
No, approximately.
Of dividing them and getting a full percentage, but we currently have over 1,400 applicants for 400 spots for the incoming class of starting in 2019. That has over time increased over time. And I think it's not just our school, it is career and technical education in general. As college becomes more expensive and out of reach for many families, we need to think of alternative ways, and the living wage of an electrician is really comparable to a master's degree, and I think more parents are now recognizing that. I wish we could, in fact, Mr. Layton from Salem News said, how are you going to capture that wait list? I said, build 2 more schools. It's very difficult to duplicate what we have, even in a city vocational school, because of the amount of equipment. The startup equipment, if you look at a lathe, and I think if you were part of the Gloucester machine program, and they were awarded, I believe, $500,000, each mill or lathe is approximately $40,000, and not including any tools, the tooling that's included. Add another $15,000 onto that tooling, and that's just one piece of equipment. So how can we partner with these creative partnerships by having students do part-time at the high school and then come to our programming either early afternoon or in the afternoons? But it's very difficult to duplicate, and I think it's really important to think economically as well, is that in the 1980s or late 80s into the 90s, when we started talking about state standards in education, schools that were renovating eliminated their technical programs altogether. We don't know what that cycle will be in the next 20 years of where the industries are heading. So we have to really be aware of that too. So how can we partner with that?
Thank you. Any other questions from councilors? Well, we were very grateful that you came tonight and spoke to us, and we'll invite you back as needed if you wouldn't mind come. Mark, did you want to say something? Of course.
Publicly, I'd like to thank Melissa Texera Prince. For 4 years, she led a 20-member school committee, which is no easy task. As you all know, NSATS is a combination of Essex Agricultural, North Shore Tech, and PBD Vocational. And as Melissa just said, 1,400 kids have applied there for the 9th grade, so you can understand just how popular this place is. But 115 acres, 17 buildings. She's responsible for all of the programs, all of the protocols that we have in place, the hiring of 2 superintendents, Dr. Bill Lupini and Dr. Heidi Riccio, and I'd publicly like to thank her. We already thanked her twice back at the school, but we've never gotten a chance to thank her in her hometown, and I'm eternally grateful to her and her leadership. So thank you. Thanks.
Thank you, Mark.
I'm Melissa. You know we love you.
Yes, we were also going to thank Melissa tonight for her service to our community. I know she served the greater community on the board of the tech school, but she served Gloucester as well, representing us. And thank you, Melissa. We really appreciate that. We can do another round of applause, too. Thank you.
Come on up. No?
No?
Okay.
Okay.
Well, I can't thank you enough. If there are any, come on up. Come on up, Miss Melissa.
I had a chance to be with Heidi. That's why I'm here tonight. Resigning in December was tough for me, but my work was done there and obviously in great hands. But I just wanted to say thank you for your support with Dr. Riccio. She is an incredible woman. She has more knowledge behind her and vocational education. You can tell she's that hands-on superintendent in the classrooms with the kids, doing the budget and bringing the 3 schools together and keeping them together. It's been a struggle, but you are in great hands with with Heidi and Marie and Mark Strada's chair. excellent. So, but thank you for your support, but it's time to pass the gavel and all will be good. But you're in great hands. Oh.
Oh. Thank you both.
So lastly, if you have any projects at all that you can think of, because some of them can be something like we need trees trimmed, and our arbor program can do that. So they're just not households, not personal, all nonprofit community, just to make that clear.
Thank you, Heidi. Okay. Madam Clerk, next order of business, please.
Next order of business is another presentation from Ken Whitaker, the former conservation agent, regarding the Plover Protection Plan.
Thank you. Councilors, last time we spent a good bit of time on the ordinance changes to help protect the plovers, but the administration has put together a Piper Protective Plan. They call it the 3 Ps, but if you... Ken's going to give us a little briefing on that, and Mr. DeStino is going to introduce our new conservation agent, I think.
I guess I am. Mr. President, thank you. Members of the City Council. Before I turn this over to Ken to do the presentation, our former conservation agent, I would like to introduce our new conservation agent, Adrian Lennon, who is joining our new team. Very capable. We have, I know she has big shoes to fill, but we're very confident she's going to do a wonderful job, has great credentials, and I'm sure she'll get a warm welcome from the City Council. If you have any questions, of course, you feel free to reach out to her. I would also like to take the opportunity while we're giving rounds of applause to our former conservation agent for the great job that he's done for this community for a great number of years, and I am personally going to miss him a great deal. Well, thank you, Ken, for your work. So Adrian and I are here for questions if you have any,
Okay.
when Ken finishes.
Great,
Okay?
thank you very much. Thank you and welcome. So Ken, we know that you've been working very hard on the nuts and bolts of helping to protect the plovers, and among your many other things, and we do appreciate all of your work for the city. But if you can just bring us up to date on what we've got in store for the actual operational protection. Thank you.
Before that, I just want to make a comment. To celebrate Adrian's first week on the job, the Conservation Office, which has been me, decided to drop a building in the harbor so that she could supervise the cleanup. And welcome, Adrian. It's all yours. I'm here tonight to talk about the plover or the plover protection plan. We've decided to accept both pronunciations, and I prefer plover for reasons that will become clear in just a minute. But this plan was actually drafted back in December, if I remember correctly, and it's been reviewed and worked over by a number of agencies and groups: Essex County Greenbelt, Mass Audubon, state wildlife officials, federal wildlife officials. We had a number of discussions on this and really crafting this so that we can come up with something that's really going to be effective. As you know, we have not had great success in plover protection previously. The first year we did manage to save one chick. Last year we were unfortunate. We don't know how they all met their demise, but we're obviously trying to work very hard to keep that from happening to the extent that we can next year. So basically what we are doing is the same thing we did last year, except we're doing it in a bigger and better way. There's a number of aspects of this that we tried to refine and expand a little bit. I want to point out some of the major points of the plan that I think are very important. Point number one, we're in the process of identifying a scheduling coordinator. The key to this whole thing is volunteers, is boots on the ground. No single group or small group of individuals could do it. The first year we had a great team of volunteers. The second year we had an expanded list of volunteers, but just the administrative aspects of this are kind of daunting, especially on top of all the duties of the Conservation Office, which it kind of landed on, and that also happens to be just about the busiest time of the year for the conservation agent. So it's very difficult for the agent to actually provide that administration. So we're looking for a good volunteer to kind of maintain the scheduling so that we can get coverage. Last year we were largely effective in getting coverage out there from 6 o'clock in the morning to 6 or 7 o'clock in the evening. There were holes in the schedule, but overall we had pretty good subscription to that. We'd like to improve that. We want to extend that out to the dark hours. So key to that is getting a real-time system of people signing up, maintaining that, and also getting the word out. We've been very fortunate in the past to work with Good Morning Gloucester, Gloucester Daily Times, the city website. We're relying on that this year to get the call for the volunteers. But it's basically it, to get the boots on the ground and get people out there, get some training. We're going to upgrade our training this year as well. We're going to rely on Greenbelt for a lot of the symbolic fencing. We're also putting some additional signage up there. Mike Hale from the Department of Public Works has given us some signs. So we're doing it better and better, and hopefully we will be more successful this year. In addition to that, we wanted to basically brand this in a sense that give our volunteers a little bit more notoriety out there, a little bit more veneer of authority, if you will. So we're looking at do some type of uniforming, some type of branding, T-shirts, a Gloucester wildlife agent or something. And what I would also like to do is T-shirts, hats. Last year I gave these out to my volunteers. I have 6 left. I'll leave them here. Take them as you go out. And as you can see, I prefer the term plovers rather than plovers because it just doesn't work with plovers. It doesn't work with plovers. Gloucester is for plovers, not plovers. And I'm expecting a trademark infringement lawsuit any day, but I've gotten away with it so far. So that's the plan. So we've been working on it for the past 3 months. It's a good plan. It's going to take a lot of volunteer effort here, but I do think we're very, very organized in the training. We're going to have a public sign-up website for people can sign up to put their, we're looking at 1.5 hour shifts during the day, and we're really looking to expand out to the evening hours. There's also been some discussion getting over to high school too, and quite frankly, there's a lot of kids on the beach at night. They need to be aware of what's going on. We'd like to get some training over there and say, if you're going to go out on the beach, just be aware of the situation. These are very vulnerable critters, and you need to be careful. So we're going to upgrade that as well. So I think we've got a good plan. We've all got our fingers crossed that we're going to be very successful on it, but we're doing it better. I'll be glad to take any questions you might have. Yes, sir.
Questions? Councilor O'Hara.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. Just as far as we have a lot of viewers, if there's anyone who's interested in volunteering, who could they contact?
At this point, I would suggest that you just send an email to Adrian, and when we get the full structure in place, the personnel structure in place, we'll make sure they get on the list. That would probably be the easiest way right now, and when the time comes, we'll get the word out if there's others to get the proper connections and email addresses out.
Yes, Councilor Memhard.
One of the hot potato items in the discussion about the plovers last meeting was the fact we're going to extend the protections and start on April 1st at Good Harbor. We talked at some length about Winkersheag and coffins and cranes, and at this point we have not had success, as I understand it, in getting nesting plovers at Winkersheag. And I just want to make sure that your department and all our volunteers are right on top of that so that we create a hospitable environment, even though we're not formally protecting it from the dog activity at this time.
Right. I'm not aware of any history of appearance of plovers on Winkersheag Beach. I know that there have been several isolated nests over the last couple of years out on the private beach at Coffins Beach, and Greenbelt has been instrumental in helping us out in inspecting that. But certainly the steps that were taken previously for Good Harbor are very welcome steps, and we appreciate that, and hopefully they will prevent catastrophes like the bird nesting in the parking lot like they did last year.
Councilor Cox.
One of the things that came up in the last meeting was enforcement. And we can write all the tickets that we want through animal control, but if they're going to be thrown out in court, which we've heard rumors of that happening, then I'd like to see the conservation agent work with DPW to get the proper signs out. One of the things that I heard that reason why the tickets are being thrown out is because the magistrate doesn't feel like Gloucester has the proper signage in order to enforce the tickets that they're writing. So if there could be some level of cooperation, and I know you guys are busy, but I mean, we've got to get these tickets to stick to teach a lesson.
What we're trying to, there's 3 parts to that. First of all, we're going to work very hard with our volunteers to make them feel comfortable, I guess, in approaching people, but stepping it back in case there have been some conflicts out there, to step it back and to have the authorities to report back to higher authority if that's the case. Secondly, we do have additional signage that we'll be putting up pretty soon that kind of identifies the corridor, if you will, from the symbolic fencing down to the beach. And, you know, the third part as well is just trying to get better coverage. I appreciate the problem, and if you're out there on the 4th of July, you see that there's beach chairs right next to the fence. But we're hoping that with giving our volunteers a little bit more confidence and also having them recognized as authorities rather than, who are you telling me to get off the beach kind of stuff, hopefully that will resolve a lot of the problems.
But one of the problems is that the magistrate doesn't feel like DPW's signage is covering all the aspects. So that outside of the volunteer realm,
right.
That needs to be corrected. And that could be a year-round sign. And it's not just for the plovers, it's the dogs on the beach and stuff like that. So,
well, I think that's something we could work on the plan. We just haven't gotten that far in our thinking this year, quite frankly. We're just hoping that we can continue on more of a lighter touch and hopefully resolve the issue. Conservation Office can write tickets, but not for these matters, for other matters. So,
thank you.
because of the gift that you gave them a year and a half ago, for which I'm very appreciative, even though we haven't had to use it yet.
Yes, Councilor Gilman.
Yeah, just to piggyback a little bit on what Councilor Cox just said, having lived up in Briar Neck for 20 years, I'm very familiar with Good Harbor Beach, and one of the recommendations that I've put forward, and I'm not sure if we're going to be able to accommodate it, but I visualized having sawhorses, as soon as there are nesting plovers, of having sawhorses right at the entrance of the pedestrian bridge, for example. So in order to walk by that, you have to see the signs that there's nesting, and that way there's no conversation that someone didn't see a sign, and that similar obstacle could be replicated at the entrance to the Good Harbor Beach parking lot where the gate is, and next to the Good Harbor Beach Motel, where people can walk in down there, and also at the high-low tide mark as you walk from the private section of Briar Neck, Good Harbor, to the public. And those were just a couple of suggestions. That's different than the 50-foot fencing around the perimeter, but a bold sign right there, right when they're nesting, people can't miss it. And that was a suggestion that I've made, and I hope that administration and conservation will look closely at that from a feasibility standpoint.
We can certainly work on that as long as it, I think that the main focus needs to be in the general area of where the plovers are, and we are expanding that this year to kind of get that passage. We have issues of the tides and the water comes in and things get washed away and signs can sometimes disappear, but I think by trying to expand the awareness zone, for lack of a better term, that, it's not just within the symbolic fencing, that's most of it, but, those critters start running around in 3 or 4 days, but the path down to the beach before they can fly, or maybe we also found that there's a path over to the creek area as well. Once we see the way they're moving, we can kind of concentrate and be very, very careful in this and expand that out as much as we can without causing too much public outcry. But you have a very good point. Awareness, there's several other ideas that we may test out in terms of letting people know. But we want to, don't want to take over the whole beach because, quite frankly, it breeds a lot of resentment, and that's the last thing we want. The hats look great, by the way.
Thank you. So I just want to speak on the signage and people's, when somebody starts to read something, they read the first couple lines and then they kind of lose interest a little bit. So we have this footbridge that goes onto the beach, and then also we have the road going down towards Salt Island where the hotel is, which is so long. And all I can picture is myself driving on the highway and seeing a billboard saying, if you and then you go down a little bit, and then there's another one. So I think maybe we could line the bridge as you go down, so you don't lose interest, and have a sign at the beginning, and then have another sign as you go down, so you're reading it as you get before. Now, when you get to the end of the beach, but it keeps you in things in perspective, and then by the time you get to the beach, you've read the whole billboard, or whatever you want to call it, the sign.
You raise a very good point.
But do you see what I mean? So the people's attention,
you
you lose it real quick. So that if you keep them in, maybe that's just something to think about that we can talk about in the future. But exactly, see.
A lot of beach signs do suffer from TMI, too much information, and people get to the third line and they say, okay, fine, I'll keep my garbage away, and, that type of thing. So you raise a very good point to try to focus the eye on this. We're expanding that focus this year. Whether it's going to be sufficient, I simply don't know, but it raised some very good points. This is not a one-off. I mean, we learned every year. We'll continue to learn this year as well what is effective. There's also a possibility of, at the kiosk, people got to come in through the kiosk, except if they come over the bridge, and that's an opportunity for getting some other information out there as well. So I know every time I drove into the kiosk last week, the guys that said, okay, what's going on with the birds? Everybody knows about it. So.
Other questions or comments? Yes, Councilor Gilman?
I don't know if we've considered this, but the Interact Club, the National Honor Society, ROTC, they're all required to do service. And I'm wondering if that would be another group of responsible youth that are 17, 18 years old to be part of the volunteer effort, and they could get credit for doing that service. So it's just a thought.
Great idea. I know that there is a presentation over at Gloucester High School. I think it's this Friday, but I'm not sure. Maybe another Friday, of a presentation with the environmental kids, over and I guess resiliency, coastal resiliency. So that might give us some opportunities to get into that community as well. I also want to mention that the Mass Audubon Society is going to have a training program on plovers. I think it's March 30th in the library, if I remember correctly, which would also help public outreach as well and give a little training. But that's a great idea. We'll definitely pursue that. Thank you.
Excellent. Anybody else? Ken, thank you very much. This is a great program for this year. Okay, Madam Clerk, next item of business, next order of business.
Is the consent agenda?
Yes, so we'll call for the consent. Anybody want to pull anything off? I will pull off item number 1, the management appointment of the police chief. Anybody else want to pull anything off? So then, as the consent agenda as amended, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay. I pulled off the management appointment for the police chief. We've been discussing this all along. We're at the stage now where the administration has made an offer which has been accepted by Chief Connolly from Manchester. It now comes to the City Council for a confirmation and for the funding of the contract. As we discussed last time, Councilor Cox is Chairman of Budget and Finance, and Councilor LeBlanc and I have discussed having this be our committee meeting as a committee of the whole rather than to do the subcommittee. So everyone is here, and we can all participate. So I did an informal poll by email suggesting that we schedule that for a week from tonight, Tuesday the 19th, here at Kairou's Auditorium at 7 p.m. Vanessa has confirmed that Chief Connolly can be with us. The mayor has confirmed that she will be here as well. And I just want to get confirmation from everyone that that's good. So what we would do is we would sit as a committee for the whole. We would, just as any of our standing committees, we would hear from the administration, who would present the candidate. We would have the candidate. I'm going to suggest we have him sit up here with us, so he's not standing there all night long while we question him. And then we will have questions of both the administration and the candidate. And once we get through the committee part, we will have resolutions to vote on. and then we can adjourn the committee and go into the full city council for the official vote. That sound okay to everyone? Oh, good, okay. Then,
I move to approve the management appointment of police chief on the consent agenda, as noted.
moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Thank you. We also have a,
Well, at least that one was moved and seconded, unlike the first one.
we have a unanimous consent calendar also tonight. Anybody want to remove anything from that? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Madam Clerk, next order of business.
Next order of business would be the P&D Standing Committee report of 3/6/2019.
Councilor Gilman, anything?
There were no matters to report from that meeting.
Thank you. Next order of business, Madam Clerk.
Next order of business is the decision to adopt Special City Council Permit 2019-002, Schoolhouse Road Number 2, Number 3, Number 4, Map 262, Lots 14 and 37, and Gloucester Crossing Road Number 7, Map 43, Lots 4 and 5, for the modification of Condition Number 8 of Special City Council Permit 2017-012 pursuant to Gloucester Zoning Ordinance, Section 1.5.13, compliance with approved plans, modification of plans.
Councilor Gilman.
I move to adopt Special Council Permit 2019-002.
Second.
Moved and seconded. So that was the discussion we had about the removing that condition from the Gloucester, from the Fuller mixed-use venture of the sewage, because the sewer project has been approved by Mass Works. So it's a roll call. Roll call, please.
Councilor Nolan?
Yes.
Councilor O'Hara?
Yes.
Councilor Cox?
Yes.
Councilor Gilman?
Yes.
Councilor Hecht?
Yes.
Councilor Holgrim?
Yes.
Councilor Blank?
Yes.
Councilor Lundberg?
Yes.
Councilor Memhard?
Yes.
The motion for the decision to adopt passes on a vote of 9 in favor, 0 opposed.
Excellent. Next item, Madam Clerk.
Next item is other business. First, this is the discussion regarding the 2019 permitting of the Grand Prix Gloucester Cyclocross event at Stage 4 Park.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I put this on the agenda so we could have a discussion among all of us at the same time about cyclocross. Last December at P&D, P&D considered a letter from the Stage 4 Park Advisory Committee which detailed some of the issues that we've had with the cyclocross and the restoration of the park after the race is over. It's a common issue that we have every year, and I think most of us remember talking about it every year. And so last year, the Stage 4 Park Advisory Committee wrote us a letter. Us, the City Council, went to P&D, said that, maybe we ought to consider what are we going to do with this event? It really does a lot of damage to the park. We promised them at that time that we would have a public discussion about that. So I was reminded by that I haven't done that yet. So I have a suggestion that I'd like to just run by everybody. The cyclocross, they usually apply for their special permit like in June or July. They haven't applied for it yet for October. However, they have on their website 2 dates. They said that we're going to have Gloucester Cyclocross on October 4th and 5th. So they don't have any our approval for that, but they're already advertising it. What I would like to do is ask Joanne, as the city clerk, to send them a message and saying, you're advertising these dates. You don't have city council permission yet. If you wish to gain the city council permission, please apply ASAP. And get that application before us, and then have the public forum where anyone who has an opinion about whether we should continue to have cyclocross can speak up, and we all decide whether it's a good idea to continue with it. So I just wanted to run that by you before I asked Joanne to do that. Any suggestions? Councilor Cox?
I have no problem with them advertising future dates with lack of permit. I've been involved with several 5Ks throughout the city, and the YMCA, You Can Run, the Lone Goal, the Veterans one, they all have the whole save the date thing. So I have no problem with them advertising in advance of that. A lot of people do it, so.
Councilor LeBlanc.
I don't have a problem having them do it also. You know, we have to look at the bigger picture here, where we have a waterfront festival that cars drive all up and down the grass, and, you know, they bring people to town. This event's bringing people to town. Whether they spend money or not, they return because they fall in love with our city, and they see the beautiful city that we have, especially up at Stage Fort Park. Also, it's an off-season where it's in October, so it's really not interfering with any seasonal schedule. You know, I mean, if we're gonna give them a crap, then we got to give the farmers market crap, and we got to give the waterfront festival crap. You know what I mean? I understand that they use the park, but they put it back pretty good. They had 1 year that they really did a horrible job. You know, it was weather related, but so did the waterfront festival when they had rain 1 year and it was rutted. So I mean, we're being biased here. We got to make sure that, you know, we're doing this across the board and not just beating up one group. So, you know, I don't see that it's fair to pick out one group and not address the whole park as everybody using it and just this one group.
Right. So, and that was, first of all, we really shouldn't get into the discussion of substance here because we haven't noticed this for a substantive discussion. That's my point was, how do we get this before us all so we can have the substantive discussion? And if we want to include all events, great, and include the farmers market and everybody else. I'm totally in favor of that. The only issue with cyclocross is that they're the only ones that we have a complaint about for the restoration of the park. But we can do everybody if that would be better.
I don't think that's correct. We've got many complaints about the Waterfront Festival. Yeah. And quite frankly, I'm sure they have their dates for August already advertised on their website as well. So if you want to do it right, then wait until they pull their application and then have it go to P&D and have it come to us. That's the proper way to do it.
Yeah, the events committee.
Anybody else? Councilor Hecht.
Seems to me on a timing perspective, out of respect for people that are planning these things, that if it's going to be bad news, I'm not saying it's going to be bad news, but if it's bad news, I'd certainly want to know that earlier than later. I mean, so I think if this is in a different category, and we can have everyone request earlier permits, we could actually discuss what is our permitting schedule in general. We could do that, which is...
Clear in the application.
I'm sorry?
It's extremely clear in the application. They cannot apply prior to so many months, and they have to apply 2 months before. I mean, we're out of line here with this discussion.
We make the rules. What I'm saying is, if you want to have a discussion that makes big picture sense, then I would examine everything, which means, is there enough time between the application period and the event so that people can be ready for bad news if it's a major planning function? That's all I'm saying. That would be part of, I'm just saying.
It's part of the application, and it's part of the hawkers and peddlers thing that I've worked on for over 4 years. It's part of the application. Like, we've sat down, the events committee has sat down and said, okay, how far in advance or how, you know, how we can't do things a year in advance. It's not fair to other events. So the events committee has set those dates for a good reason.
I'm in favor of having this broad discussion.
Councilor Holmgren.
I don't want to put Jill on the spot, but I'm going to put you on the spot. Jill Cahill, just so we are clear, could you please tell us exactly what deadlines people have to follow when they apply for special events? Or were we...
Or Joanne.
Oh, Joanne. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so if you're a reoccurring event, it's 45 days, at least 45 days before the event. Okay, if it's a new event, it's at least 60 days before the event.
Thank you.
Councilor Gilman.
So, because it's not appropriate for us to deliberate on this right now, I would suggest that because the 400th birthday is coming up and we're looking for what it is we want to do to preserve Stage 4 Park overall, we're no longer in the queue for different grants that we had hoped to receive, and we have to make the best we can with what we have. So I would say, because of that, from a process standpoint, it would be appropriate to let whatever groups are using Stage 4 Park, just give them a heads up that we'd like to accelerate the permitting because we have a huge event coming up and we want to be fair to our partners. In that way, we can have the conversation proactively, professionally, and if part of our decision is we want to bring these back for public discussion instead of just making the decision in P&D for special permitting, that would be the wonderful opportunity to bring this back in front of the general public and hear from administration, hear from the Stage 4 Park Advisory Board, and then make a decision that makes sense. So I'm in favor of that, and I think the 400th birthday that's coming up is the reason why we really want to put this up on top of the queue. So thank you.
Councilor Holmgren again.
I agree with what's been said. If we're going to write a letter to one entity, we should write a letter to all of them. And I guess I didn't realize that people were advertising before they were approved. But I was thinking of the 400th anniversary myself, right, and how concerned the Stage 4 Park Advisory Committee has been in keeping that landscape preserved.
Councilor Memhard, you haven't spoken yet.
I'd just like to say that I think this is an appropriate discussion to have. It is a balancing act. This is a wonderful, unique city asset, Stage 4 Park. It used to be, if I recall correctly, because I took my kids there, we'd have a circus or a carnival at Stage 4 Park. We decided that wasn't an appropriate use, and we planted an apple orchard in its place. That's not there anymore either. But the concern is simply whether it's an appropriate use and whether it's too intensive and whether it can be restored properly so that it's available for enjoyment of everyone. The cyclocross is a particular wear and tear subject to the weather, and that's part of what the conversation has to be.
Joanne.
Okay, if I may, I just want to inform the council that the Waterfront Festival has already been approved through P&D and through the SEAC and also the farmers market. So in order to be fair, I mean, you've already approved some of them. I mean, we cannot send that letter and then just send it to one event. I'm just saying that's my opinion.
Councilor O'Hara.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilor Lundberg, for bringing this forward. We're so blessed to have such a beautiful park. You know, you compare this to Lynch Park in Beverly, Smith's Point in Manchester. I don't know if they would have a cyclocross going through Lynch Park, but I suspect not. I think we need to look at what we have, the beauty that we have, and it's not open season for anything. And I'm not pro cyclocross or otherwise, but you know, we have to look at the long-term beauty. Maybe we need to go back, I've heard, and look at the deed, how this property was transferred to the city and what its uses were identified as. Because, again, we're so gifted to have that. And I think, you know, we as a council, you know, kind of have a little say in what goes on along with the administration, that we owe it to the citizens, taxpayers of the city to preserve that beautiful asset. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Cox.
I do agree with Jamie. I believe that some oversight into our land needs to be done so that it's equitable for all. We also have a 400th committee, so I think we need to rely on them and the administration to make the recommendations to us instead of us telling them what they are going to do with their event and the years preceding it. The anniversary is in 2023, that's 4 years from now. I don't think, 5, thank you. I'm in fiscal year, sorry. So I think it's appropriate to have the discussion. I think it's highly inappropriate to pinpoint one group out of everyone that uses the park as far as bringing them forward in advance, especially since we have already events that are permitted for this year. I think it's too early to start making restrictions or talking negatively about some events over others as far as the impact goes for Stage Fort. I would like to hear from the 400th committee to see what their recommendations are, and do we start at 2 years in 2021? Start at 2 years and then have no events of this that could hurt the property for those 2 years preceding the anniversary party. So I just, it's never too early in government to start having the conversation because we're wicked slow, but I think requiring people to come forward to us at this point is a little overstepping.
I wasn't going to suggest they would be required. It'd be up to them. The important thing is if there is an issue of use that they're counting on that might not happen, they should know about that now. They don't have to come. They can wait until June, just like they usually do. And I think that the time limits that you cited those are minimum requirements. They can apply way in advance if they'd like. And it behooves the city to give them advice if there is a substantial suggestion about the condition of the park after it has been used for that that we need to discuss. So I'm just saying, give them the chance. They don't have to. They can come in June like they've done. And if they get turned down in June, that might be a bigger problem for them than if they didn't, if they know about it now. Councilor Nolan?
We do need to have this discussion, and we already have a committee that's been very adamant about this, and it's a Stage 4 Park Committee, and they've been charged with the condition of the park and to look into it for the 400th as part of their major game plan for the improvements and how to get there. They have been talking to us, and they have been beating their heads against the walls with this. So this is definitely something that we do need to talk about, and it's not singling something out. It's an ongoing issue for 3 years now, with some information that comes up each year and doesn't get followed through in fact and in theory. It's not pointing fingers. We have some real issues, and it may be good for Paul to come and talk to us before this, or to have a larger communication with the public, because it may be something that changes, and he may not be having his event this year.
Councilor LeBlanc.
So I'm not disagreeing that we need to have this conversation in the future, but I don't think now or this year is appropriate because we've still got a few years before this happens. I'm sure they're well aware, and I'm sure the events committee, and I'm sure the Stage 4 Park Advisory Committee, and I'm sure the administration are all aware that we have our 400th on the radar, and we're going to act accordingly when the time comes. But, I mean, we're basically 5 years. If you include this year, we're 5 years away from it. So, I mean, I don't see holding these people's feet to the fire just yet. I think it's a good thing for the city. I think we do have to have this conversation in the future, but, I just think it's premature.
Well, we are going to have the conversation when they apply. And it's going to happen. And I just thought giving them some advance notice so that they can make other plans if it doesn't go well for them. But again, I didn't want us to discuss substance here because we all have opinions about it, but that's not appropriate right now. Let's have a public hearing on it. That's what I'm saying. And, they can apply or not apply. That's their business. But we need to have a public hearing, and we need to hear from all the constituents, the Stage 4 Park Advisory Committee, the administration, any of the user groups who have an opinion about this. I think we should get all their opinions out and decide. Not leave it up to P&D this year, in July, to decide if cyclocross is okay, because I just think it's a bigger question, and we should all be involved. That's my only point. So I'm open to suggestions on how we bring that to the fore, have that discussion. Councilor Hecht?
Mr. President, what would you say our options are? A, B, C. What are the different ways we could handle this in your mind?
Well, I suppose we could, there could be a use ordinance drafted. The one I thought of was asking the cyclocross guys to come early, but maybe that's not a good idea. Maybe there's something broader that we need to do. So I'd have to give that some thought. I'd certainly like input from everybody. Councilor Gilman? Oh, wait. Joanne's raising her hand, so let's...
I was just going to say, once, a suggestion might be is that once the SEAC receives the application, we can just not take it up and refer it to council and all the advisory committees before SEAC votes on it. No?
If you do that with that one particular, you do it with every single thing that's held at Stage 4.
Well, that's what you're doing now. I mean...
But we're not.
You're not doing it now, but what Councilor President is suggesting is a public hearing.
I think it's inappropriate to have it this year because other events have already been permitted and allowed to move forward with their planning. If you want to start the process for next year for moving forward, that's fine. But right now, I don't think it's fair to single out one single event.
I do agree with that,
So-
but I guess, like Councilor
Timing-wise.
President, he wants a public hearing, so.
If they wish to. He doesn't have to. He's not, I don't know if he was prepared to address this particular issue. If he has an opinion and is here, great. If he doesn't, that's fine too.
I would just for a little bit more information, Mr. President, on this issue. This group is fully aware. I went to the Special Events Committee, Joe will tell you, because not only talking about this event, but the number of road races, and asked the Special Events Committee to reset and look at the number of events that we have for the, to protect the quality of life of the residents in this community. And I think they're doing that. And the cyclocross was at that meeting with their application, and they were put on notice that the 400th anniversary was coming. So, but to the point, to the council's question of the options are really simple. If you want to call a public hearing, there's 3 ways to do it. The council president can call it, 3 councilors can get together and call it, or the mayor can call a public hearing. So if you want them to appear, you call a public hearing, you call them and tell them to appear. If, that's it. If you don't, the debate about whether or not to do it, you can do it. You just do it. One person can do it, 3 people can do it, or the mayor can do it. And that's it. So, whether it's right or wrong, that's up for you folks to decide. They will come in front of you, just like they always do. But let's keep in mind, this is an event, an off-shoulder event, that has been coming here for 20 years. 20 years. And they have... for the most part, we've had complaints, yes, about the park, but the park gets beat up by other reasons, as we've heard. Now, Councilor LeBlanc brought a few of those up. And, if you want to address those types of issues, you should address them as a whole. But if you want this one event to come in front of you, you have a mechanism to do that. And those are really your options. So.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so we know what our options are. So we may suggest something, and I certainly don't want to single out cyclocross. I think it's applicable. It's applicable to anybody who has been using the park, and we would love to have their opinions about it. I remember the discussion we got in with the farmers market, which was not satisfactorily resolved, and that we kind of let that slide. But it's still a real issue for them. They have the same issue. they park a lot of vehicles on the grass, and then the grass is gone. And we all have said, well, I guess that's kind of okay, but maybe it's not anymore. So, well, why don't we discuss a fair way to do this, and then one of us will make a proposal. Maybe I don't want to do it in a vacuum, so I'll do some consulting, and we'll see if we can find some common ground. Okay?
Has the permit been?
No, they haven't.
Right. So how can we have them come before us if they haven't applied?
No, as Jim is saying, if we have a public hearing about the use of Stage 4 Park, and we invite people who have used it in the past, they'll come. That's all. I mean, it's not their application. It's just.
We shouldn't call people out. We're just.
Yeah.
General.
Yeah. It's just right. Okay. Thank you. Next item, Madam Clerk.
Next item is the discussion regarding boards, committees, commissions, meetings scheduled for April 27th, 2019.
So just to bring you up to date on that, the mayor and I have been discussing this for a good long while about having a meeting of the boards, committees, and commissions, in large part to thank them for their service and to kind of honor what they do. Jill Cahill and I have had some discussions about, like, what would we do when we got them all here. And some of the things that we talked about were that not all the boards, committees, and commissions are, in the same shape in terms of their organization, their mission, and that we thought that perhaps we, the administration mostly, needed to spend some time with those that aren't quite there yet. And also maybe we work in something with the boards, committees, and commissions about the 400. So what Jill and I proposed to the mayor, which she's okay with, as long as you guys are okay too, is we have that meeting, but not on April 27th, maybe in the fall. And that gives Jill some time to work with those committees that need, some focus. I think we all have our own experiences with some of those committees, and we'd just like to be able to get them all up and running before we have them all show up. Because I think if we have a meeting of the boards, committees, and commissions, we're going to get one chance to do it. It's not going to be like a biannual thing. So I just wanted to run that by everybody and make sure that seems okay. Councilor Gilman?
I like the idea conceptually. I would like to allow counselors to be able to recommend topics that we believe we need to cover in that meeting in the fall.
Oh, absolutely.
And I don't know what that process is, but maybe it's to submit something to our city clerk, our suggestions, but there are some very visible things that I believe that we need to be reviewing, and I don't want to miss that opportunity to have a good dialogue with the necessary preparation for an appropriate agenda when this meeting does come. It shouldn't be a dog and pony show.
Yep.
I mean, that goes without saying. There should be some meaningful things that are reviewed as well. Thank you.
Yes, that was, the second part of this was that what Jill and I discussed was that we didn't want just a dog and pony show, and we wanted all councilors' input. So to give us some time to do that, I'll give it some thought, what we'd like that to look like for, if it's a morning in Saturday morning from 9 to noon, what would we do for those 3 hours? What would be a good thing for them to do? And I'd like to hear from everyone if you have some input. Yes, Councilor Gilman.
And one more thought. How about asking the boards and commissions how they would like to spend the time? What do they feel would be helpful for them in their roles? Might be another way to get some buy-in and hear from the 37 appointed boards that we have.
Yeah, and that was kind of where Jill and I ended up. There are some that you could ask that today and they'd give you an answer tomorrow. There are some that wouldn't have a clue as to what they were doing, and some are defunct. So we'd like to have that time. So good suggestion.
Sounds like a plan.
Good plan. Okay, thank you. Madam Clerk, next order of business.
Is the update of the Fisheries Commission by City Council Representative Councilor Scott Memard.
Councilor Memhard.
Yes, Councilor President. Well, you're all aware that this is the upcoming weekend, March 17th, 18th, 19th, is the Boston International Seafood Show. And our chair, Mark Ring, is persuaded the city to focus on lobstering for some reason. So we're going to talk about mass lobsters. And Sal DiStefano, Angelo Sanfilippo, our Snap Chef partners, Todd and all, are going to be manning our massive corner booth. And we're all invited if we want to check in with the mayor's office or Jill to get tickets and coordinate that. But the city is doing a good show at the seafood show coming up soon.
Is there any particular event, like last year I think the mayor did a monkfish cook-off kind of thing?
I believe there is a Monday morning. Jill, perhaps you could address that. That would be helpful. VIP program, which I'm sure the governor will be there as usual, you know. And
Actually, this will be the first year for the governor, for us. So Monday, there's two exciting things happening on Monday. One, for the first time at the Seafood Show, there's what they're calling Mass Ave, and the Department of Agriculture is encouraging small businesses to have booths there. So in the past, one of the reasons we got involved was because it was expensive for our smaller fishermen and smaller businesses to enter the show. This year, they get a 50% rebate if they had their own booth, and I believe we have 5 of our local companies who are on this Mass Ave. So there's a ribbon cutting for Mass Ave at noon, and at 1 o'clock is the VIP reception, which features our partner Snap Chef, does an incredible array of food. As we said, this year we're featuring Massachusetts lobster, along with a ground fish that I want to say is dabs, but you might know that better than I. Dabs, that's right? And it also features Cape Ann Brewery. And this year, not only do we have the governor, the lieutenant governor, the assistant secretary Nam Pham, we also are expecting Congressman Moulton to attend, and consulates, I believe, from at least 3 different countries. So follow up with my office if you want more information. Monday. Yeah. No, Monday's the 18th. Monday's the 18th.
right in there in St. John's.
Great. Thank you, Jill.
I think come through us. But we have a briefing with the mayor tomorrow for all the final details, so contact us. We'll get you what you need.
Thank you.
All right, great.
Scott?
Thanks.
That's it?
And thank you for your
That's a lot. Okay. Next item.
Next item is the councilor's request to the mayor.
Okay. Councilor Heck, shall we start at your end?
Nothing to report right now.
Wow. Well, you do have an event coming up. What do you mean you have nothing to report?
I'm sorry, I'm coming off a wicked flu. I'm on a NyQuil hangover. That's what it is. I don't even know my own name. So, yes, Thursday night, I'm sorry, I'm so spacey right now, is a lobster trap Christmas tree, Thursday night. City councilor pouring beers. I'll be pouring beers and carousing around town. We're going to raffle off 10 lobster traps. So come by, and I'm sorry? Yeah. 10 lobster traps. Come get your chance. Around 7 o'clock, we're going to have a slight program, a little bit about the history of the trap and some stories, and people will be able to tell a little bit of folklore about the history. It's 19 years old now, about the founding and the history and the rusty old traps we used to have, etc. We're going to be decorating, highly decorated with buoys, and I'm going to get there at 4 if anyone wants to come and help decorate. And it should be just a great night. We're going to invite a lot of the beneficiary is the tree itself, but really through the Art Haven. So the fundraisers for Art Haven, and the funds will go to Art Haven with the proviso that what it takes to run the lobster trap Christmas tree every year will be funded, hopefully all out of this money. And then if there's any left over, that Art Haven will have it, and every year we hope to build this and be great for our kids and great for tourism. So come Thursday night at 6 o'clock. And the raffle will be at 8 o'clock for the 10 lobster traps. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Gilman.
Thank you. So I just wanted to, Ken Whitaker mentioned the upcoming vulnerability, storm surges, and sea level rise presentation and discussion at Gloucester High, and that's Friday, March 22nd At the GHS auditorium is at 9:30, and then at 10:20 afterwards, it's in the cafeteria. I attended that last year, and it was incredible, and many of us did. And I was so proud of our students. They each took a different region of Gloucester, and they simulated at different levels of sea rise, and they discussed the different types of concerns that we had, and it was really, it was great. So I encourage people to attend. I also wanted to just recognize the Moose Lodge Youth Awareness Team. Kudos to Jesse Alexander, who came in second in Rhode Island and Massachusetts, and Delaney Benchoff, who came in third, and Rachel Belanja, who came in eighth, and just recognizing Jack Bergen and Brandon Smith. All five of them together did close to 100 kids' talks in grades K through 4 in all Gloucester public schools, and they did a great job, and I'm very proud of them. I've been working with them for 11 years, but these students were just standouts this year, and we did really well. And next Tuesday, Superintendent Sapphire is going to interview them on Superintendent's Corner, and they're excited, and I'm just very proud of their accomplishments. So really great role models for our younger students in our schools. And one of the final things I wanted to just mention that on Thursday, March 14th, the proposed budget for fiscal year 2020, there'll be a public hearing at the Essex North Shore Agricultural and Technical School in front of the school committee, and it was posted on our website today. Thank you.
Councilor O'Hara.
I just want to give thanks to the DPW, Mike Hale, the employees for doing a great job with this most recent storm of 4 to 8 inches. By the time it was over, there was 14 inches of snow in Gloucester. Obviously, it's all melting, but we can all reflect back 7 days, and it was quite a storm, and I want to thank them and the police force for doing a great job. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Holmgren.
Yes, I just want to say I'm looking forward to Saturday's Keep Massachusetts Beautiful event, and one of our featured speakers at this event is Melissa Cox. Also, Ainsley Smith, the chair of the Gloucester Clean City Commission, will be there. It is at Endicott College, and it's an afternoon of talking trash, so it's sharing ideas for preventing and cleaning up litter on the North Shore. I am very excited.
Trashy talk?
Thank you.